Just like in nature, human culture follows ebbs and flows, inhales and exhales. Things grow and die, get bigger and then contract. Evolution accelerates and then slows down. The universe moves in cycles, almost always gradually and predictably, until it doesn't. Every once in a while, the stars align, the weather is perfect, the moon crosses in front of the sun during a solar flare, and then blah, there's an explosion of massive change, and it releases a sonic boom that reverberates through time and space, sending us hurtling towards brand new timelines and possibilities. And when the planets align and the conditions are perfect, it just takes a single spark to set it off. Today, I am so excited to say we get to talk to one of those sparks. And her name is Alison Laichter. Alison founded and ran the Jewish Meditation Center in New York City, a place that brought the world's most inspiring Kabbalists and leading rabbis and Jewish mystics together with leading Buddhist thinkers, Tibetan Llamas, internationally renowned meditation teachers, and thousands upon thousands flocked to this grassroots, community-led center and its meditation retreats to join in on this swirling hurricane of contemplative wisdom, merging and mixing and helping give birth to the beautiful spiritual landscape that Jews and the rest of the world get to explore today. Alison, before all that, worked as an engineer and an urban planner, making New York City intersections easier to cross. And holy moly, has she done the exact same thing as a mystic and a teacher. Calling herself a collector of mentors, she has studied under Tibetan Llamas like Vajrayana Buddhist master Lama Tharchin Rinpoche, Soto Zen priest and founder of the San Francisco Zen Center, Zoketsu Norman Fischer, Rabbi Alan Lew, who pioneered the merging of Zen Buddhist and Jewish meditative wisdom, and Shoshana Cooper and Rabbi David Cooper, who carry a cross-fertilization of Sufi mysticism, Hasidism, and Kabbalah. And passing this beautiful, vibrant, living rainbow from them through her own soul and out to the world, Alison is a beam of Jewish magic, an incredible meditation teacher and spiritual community leader, creating these new communal experiences all over the world, my new parenting inspiration, and a fantastic friend to hang out with. Without further ado, please open your hearts and your eyes to Alison.
So I grew up with Holocaust survivor grandparents, very like conservative, big C, Jewish, like Hebrew school 3 days a week, bat mitzvah, red Torah, like did all the things I was supposed to do. But didn't have. They have a lot to say.
Live up. That's perfect timing.
Guys, just come over here. You want to be in the podcast? Just get over here. They really do.
You want to come up?
No.
Okay.
When I was 15, I was reading a magazine that doesn't exist anymore, YM magazine, and because I don't think magazines exist anymore. But anyway, it was like a teen girl magazine.
Okay.
And in the back, which is like advertisements, you know, and there was an ad for a sleepaway camp, for an environmental sleepaway camp. And I was like, oh, I should go to that. And I like looked it up. I think the internet didn't exist. I don't even remember. I like called a number.
Was it in high school?
Yeah, I was 15. I like called a number. I think that was like in it. And whatever. I wound up, got a scholarship, got a ride. Like it was in a different state.
Yeah.
I like figured it all out because the way my family system is that I didn't ask if I could do anything. I just went to my parents and I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the sleepaway camp. It's already paid for and I already have a ride to and from. And I leave on this day. And so my parents were just like, okay. And so I went. And then it like completely radicalized me. So it was like my mom still calls it like the culty environmental sleepaway camp. But at that camp, I learned how to meditate. So at that camp, there were different people, different adults that were a part of things, and some of the founders of the deep ecology movement were part of the camp. So like Joanna Macy was supposed to be there. Her husband, Fran Macy, who's like one of the people who started Peace Corps, taught me how to meditate.
Wow.
And John Seed, who started like the Rainforest Action Network, was there. Like it was a really interesting group of people in camp, but meditation was just like part of the camp. It wasn't like a special thing. I don't even think it was in the advertisement. But that was my biggest takeaway. Also, it like radicalized me, so it made me think a lot differently about like activism and gender and racism and sexism. Like it really like brought up a lot that in my like sheltered suburban teenagehood had not really come up before in that way. So anyway, I came back home from that camp, and I wasn't like a monk, you know, like meditating all the time, but I was definitely like on a path, and I was just kind of like, I want to learn everything I can about meditation, because I felt like a window opened up in my brain. That's what it felt like. And so at the time, the library, my local library had like nothing, and the Barnes and Noble that was like nearby had like a couple of old Buddhist books or like some like Hinduism books that touched on meditation. So I just like got all of those, read everything I could, and then I was just kind of like, oh, cool, I'm not Jewish anymore, I'm Buddhist. Like that makes sense, you know. And my parents weren't like thrilled about it, but it just like, I don't know, it was like my new identity, and I was just trying to learn. I was trying to learn as much as I could, but also I was like, if I do this enough, then I probably could like levitate and like bend spoons and walk through walls. So that became like my goal. Yeah. As a teenager. Then later, we'll fast forward around, but I went to college for engineering, for civil engineering, and I like learned physics and then I was like, oh, you actually can't walk through walls. Turns out I do believe in science. And the levitating monks, they're just like hopping, like. But it's still like a great goal, I guess. Anyway, so for a while I was like, oh, my parents are Jewish, but I'm Buddhist, you know? And didn't tell my Holocaust survivor grandparents because I was not a total idiot. And then I was in college and I went on Birthright, and I'm like a Birthright success story because I just went because it was a free trip.
Of course.
And I hadn't been to Israel before, and I knew it would make my grandparents really happy. So I went on like an environmental focus trip. And someone on that trip handed me David Cooper's book, God is a Verb, and was like, I think you would like this. And I read that book, and it like changed everything I thought about Judaism and spirituality and my own like connections with my ancestor. You know, like it changed everything because so much of
you read it on birthright?
Yeah.
Wow.
So much of what I found meaningful in Buddhism, I didn't know had a reflective, mostly the same thing in Judaism, because I had never been exposed to mysticism before, or like any Jewish contemplative practices. So first I got really mad at every Hebrew school teacher I ever had, because I was like, I spend so much time with these people, like learning, and no one mentioned any of this, which is part of why I love teaching kids and teenagers now. But after I got done being mad, then I was like, oh, I guess I need to like learn more about Jewish meditation and mysticism. So then that launched me into a whole other world. And I wound up finishing college, graduating college, and then I moved to San Francisco and Berkeley and lived there for a while. And then I just sort of like coincidentally, but you know, it's not really possible, moved down the street from Chokhmat Halev, which at the time was a Jewish meditation center. So all the big teachers came there. Because that was like the place to be. And so then I was exposed to a lot of incredible people. That's when I met Rabbi Alan Lew, who became one of my big teachers and important teachers in my life. And I think the Coopers were there at one point, but I hadn't totally connected with them. And then lived there for a while. Then I moved back to New York for grad school. I'm an urban planner in my other life. And that's when I was really missing the community and the teachings and stuff that I was getting when I lived in the Bay Area. And then I found out that the Coopers were doing a silent retreat at Isabella Friedman. So I obviously have to go. And I was like all nervous. I'd been on retreats before, but not like that. Like, you know, it was a week-long silent retreat. And I was nervous because I loved his book so much. So, and I was always nervous, like if you read someone's book and then you meet them, what if they're like a jerk? Which I was
guaranteed to at least be not.
Well, I was like nervous about meeting Alan Lew also, and I had nothing to worry. He was an amazing person, and the person that I thought he was from reading his book, that's who he was. So I was like hopeful, but also nervous, because I had also met a lot of teachers that weren't that nice, or like that I put on a pedestal and they like quickly knock themselves off. So, but I went, that was my first of many silent retreats. So I was probably like 22 or something when I first went.
Wow.
So also
this
like
is all before 22.
Also,
you really
much
were on
younger.
like a rocket ship.
Yeah, that's what Shoshana Cooper would say. So on that first Cooper retreat, I fell in love with the practice and with their way of teaching, and also realized that although I love David Cooper's books and will always love David Cooper as a person and as a teacher, because I wound up, we'll talk in a minute, but I wound up spending a lot of time with him, Shoshana became my teacher, like my teacher, because I was so entranced by the way she answered questions. Someone would ask us, it reminded me when I lived in the Bay Area, I spent a lot of time in a Tibetan Buddhist like monastery because I had friends who lived there, whatever, long story. But I went to a lot of retreats there. I spent a lot of time there. And Shoshana felt to me like the Lamas in the Tibetan Buddhism world, but less scary to me. And not scary, but she just felt so relatable to me. And someone would ask a question about, like a simple question, like, I feel like I'm breathing wrong, or I'm not sure how to sit, or something like very simple. And she would see right through their question and like answer their actual like deepest, most like vulnerable place that they would never actually say. She just saw right through it. And you would watch people just like burst and like they might start crying, or you would watch people have like epiphanies. And I was just sitting there as like this young person, and I was just like, holy crap, like the way she is able to see people and answer what they need answering, and not even what they were asking. Like I was just like, I want to learn from that person. So I went on like a million retreats. And then I did, this is also, it tells you about me, I guess. I can't remember if it was that first retreat or a different one, but I actually did 2 back-to-back week-long silent retreats. One was with Alan Lew and Norman Fischer, and one was with the Coopers. Very different. Because Alan and Norman come from the Zen tradition, and the Coopers are like Sufi, they're all Jewish, but like Sufi mystics. So like very different vibes for their retreats.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And I did like a back-to-back.
Wow.
Which was
This is like Navy SEAL training or something. It was intense.
It was intense. But also I was like able to do, and young, and so like wanting to be in that world. And then I don't remember, I'll have to look. I don't remember like timing because, you know, I have like a rocky relationship with time, so I just have no idea what time it is at any point or how much time. Just don't ask me ever. But I wound up starting the Jewish Meditation Center in Brooklyn in part because I was just like, I don't want to just go on a retreat, have an incredible experience that like opens my mind and heart and changes something in my like chemistry and to sit with all these people and feel connected and blah, 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 and then come home and not have that again for a year or however long. Like that just felt like not a sustainable practice to me, even though I had my own meditation practice for a long time because I was like very committed and disciplined about that. And so I started brainstorming with a friend and we were just like, what if something existed in Brooklyn? If all the like hip young Jews live in Brooklyn, which is what it felt like at the time, we were like, how come nothing like this exists? Also, like, I want to bring my teachers to New York. Like, it seems silly that I have to like travel to random retreats to,
especially New York.
It just seems silly. And then also I was like a snobby 20-something Brooklynite, so I was like, I'm not going to the Upper Side, and I'm not paying $40 to like see someone. So that's when we started the Jewish Meditation Center with just this idea. I was working as an urban planner at the time. We just had this like big idea. We did not expect like hundreds and then thousands of people to start showing up at things, but it also seemed like people had been longing for something like that, and so we just created the space that they had been waiting for. So we started doing weekly programs, bringing in teachers, doing retreats, doing holiday programs, just kind of like doing all the things that I already had been doing like on my own and also just wanted for myself. It turned out lots of people wanted it too. And that's also when I basically like accidentally became a meditation teacher because we started this whole thing and then people were asking for like beginner classes and I just said like, well, I've been meditating since I'm 15 and I feel like I could probably teach a beginner class, you know? And so I wound up doing that and then 2 things happened. One, it was like, oh wow, I'm actually good at this. Like I didn't realize. And then I also didn't realize how much I loved it because it was changing my practice. And it was helping me kind of like articulate things I had never even tried to put language on before, and that was helpful to my own practice. And so that it just sort of like grew and grew, and then I like would bring the Coopers to do different things. And I also brought like Tibetan Llamas. I brought Norman Fischer. All kinds of people came in and out of the Jewish Meditation Center. And I think you also, like, you attract your peers. So since I was in my 20s, we had a lot of people in their 20s coming because I also think people were just looking for different communities. And especially in that place and world, people were, like, just looking for something different. And didn't necessarily want to like join a synagogue or go to a Buddhist monastery or, you know, but they were looking for something that connected. And so we just like hit on something.
So what would a beginner class at Jewish Meditation Center be about?
So I usually, so I learned so much from Alan Lew. And one of the things that I learned from him was to really understand that your Jewish practice and your meditation practice are actually the same, and it's really tangled up. So I stopped trying to avoid the like messiness of spirituality. So, and also I'm not a rabbi and I'm not a scholar. So although I could, at this point especially, give a class on like the history of Jewish meditation and mysticism, blah, blah, but I learned from Alan Lew that like, that's not actually what I want to do. And he used to say like, let's stop talking about it and like, let's sit, let's feel something. And so I also feel really strongly about that. So even though obviously I can talk a lot, I really want to sit and have people meditate. And so I'm pretty good at just like offering instruction. I also am not a huge fan of guided meditations. I want to teach people how to meditate, and then you meditate. And then we ask questions, and you know, we'll troubleshoot or have epiphanies together or whatever. But so what I would do on beginner nights especially is I would usually offer a couple of different practices that people could sort of like try out, because I think it's important to like date your spiritual practice. So like you might not find your soulmate right away, you know, but it's good to kind of like try out different practices and sort of like see what you have chemistry with, because you want to have, I think it's helpful to have different practices you can pull from at different times. When you're like super happy and calm, you might want to do something else, and then when you're like agitated and angry, something else might actually be more helpful. So I think it's good to have things to pull from. And also I do think you kind of have to fall in love with a practice in order for it to be sustainable, because you have to want to do it. It shouldn't feel like an obligation, right? Or like something that you have to like force yourself to do. That's just not sustainable. So you have to fall in love. And the only way to do that is to try out different ones. So I would offer 3 very different kinds of meditation practices. And also I only teach what I do. So although I know of many, many, many different kinds of practices, I have like core ones that are what I teach, because I want to be able to be like my teachers and answer questions really well. And if you don't have your own strong, deep personal practice with something, then I feel like you can't actually answer people's questions about that practice. It's like not fair. And also I think when you meditate, but also when you teach meditation, you like open a portal. And so that is, I hold that very seriously. Like it feels like a really big honor for me to like hold that kind of space for people. And so I don't take myself that seriously, but I take the practice really seriously. So I want to make sure I have like a deep well to pull from.
You don't want to open a portal without knowing what's on the other side.
I think that's dangerous. And I've watched people do it. You know, it's especially running the Jewish Meditation Center for a bunch of years. I had so many teachers, and I've also been to a million meditation classes and retreats with people from all different lineages and religions, and I have spent time with people who are amazing teachers, and I've spent time with people who are not. And so I think that's a running theme of the people that aren't good teachers, is because they don't have a deep personal practice.
Okay, so tell me about these 3 options that you
well, there's more than 3,
present.
but okay. So I always, when I'm teaching Jewish meditation, especially like if people are new to it or beginners or whatever, I always teach something with Yud Hey Vav Hey, because to me that, first of all, it's one of my practices that I learned from the Coopers, and it's incredibly accessible, and it also is a little mind-blowing. It's also, I love teaching like teenagers that practice, because you may just do it, like tell you what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Instead of just like talking around it. Okay, so Yud Hey Vav, you already know this, but I'll just say it. Yud Hey Vav Hey is the unpronounceable 4-letter word that signifies God, the divine, the source, fill in the blank in Jewish text. We don't know how to pronounce it. There's no vowels, and we don't want to pronounce it wrong, because that would be like disrespectful, or maybe blasphemous or something. So we use a lot of nicknames. One of the things I love about Judaism is the love of nicknames. And so, you know, usually if you see Yud Hey Vav Hey in text, you wouldn't try to say it. You would say Adonai, which is terrible, but means Lord. Terrible because I think it's a terrible translation.
I agree.
Or Hashem, which is maybe the greatest nickname of all time, because it just means the name. How great is that? Or, you know, the Jew hippies that I spend a lot of time with would just take a deep breath, or say Yah, right? And the teaching that I love, that I learned from the Coopers, was that Yud Hey Vav Hey could be pronounced as a breath. So Yud Hey, if you're going to transliterate, Yud Hey Vav Hey could be YHWH or VH, whatever, depending on how you pronounce Hebrew. But the Yud Hey, let's say it's YH, could be an inhale. And the Vav Hey or VH or WH could be an exhale. So I love that teaching because that means no matter what language you speak or don't speak, every breath could be a blessing, a prayer, like an invocation of divinity. And every living, breathing thing on earth is part of that divinity. I love that. So so the practice is, and I'm sorry I didn't bring any props. Usually I have like a, written out, is that you breathe in for Yud, breathe out for Hey, breathe in for Vav, breathe out for Hey. So that's like the easy first part one of the practice, right? And part of meditation is just getting really good at staying with some kind of anchor for your practice or pattern or mantra or visualization. Just having something that your mind can rest on, and then noticing when you wander away, when you think about something else, because that's what minds do. That's a good thing. It means you're alive. And the coming back, the practicing of coming back is the practice of meditation. It's not the sitting still and being all zen and calm. That's not actually meditation. That's like nice, but it's the noticing when you've gotten distracted and coming back. The coming back, that's the meditation practice. So when you're doing this practice with Yud Hey Vav Hey, you're using that as your anchor. Yud Hey Vav Hey. Okay, so that's part one. Part two is that you overlay the letters on your body. So you do like a Yud Hey Vav Hey. And you imagine, with your breath, the letters on your body. And I usually show a picture because we're so used to seeing the letters horizontally, right? But when you see it vertically, it looks like a body. Right? And I always tell people, do not correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to know, because I really like this idea. So same for you. Do not correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to know. I think that visual might be where the idea that we're created in God's image comes from.
There's no way you're wrong about that.
I mean,
Holy moly.
Yeah, so that kind
Maybe
of practice.
historically, but not on another level.
Yeah. And so, and you should try it, because that practice is also when you do like an embodied practice and you're really working with your body. So breathing in, imagining a Yud around your head. Breathing out, imagining Hey across your shoulders, down your arms. Breathing in, Vav, up your torso. Breathing out, the last Hey, across your hips, down your legs. It's a really interesting practice.
Oh my gosh, I'm so pissed. You just blew my mind. Holy moly.
It's cool,
Alexa,
right?
off. Wow.
Yeah, so that's one practice.
Oh my god. All right. We'll be right back.
That's cool, right?
Holy crap.
I'm sorry I didn't bring something to show you, but I will send it to you.
Okay, so just blew my mind, and then we had to stop. So this, the Yud Hey Vav Hey thing.
I love teaching that. I also love teaching it because some people feel, and they're not totally wrong depending on how they're learning or who they're learning with, that Jewish mysticism is inaccessible if you don't know Hebrew. And so I like teaching Yud Hey Vav Hey as a breath because it transcends language, which is also why I think meditation can be so helpful to every living, breathing person, because you don't need anything. You just need to breathe. And to what makes it feel, so I often say that I'm fluent in Buddhism, but when I practice Jewish meditation, it feels like my native tongue. That feels like a good metaphor of just like how it feels. And I think that's also like, listen, no religion, practice, whatever, has a monopoly on the breath, right? Like everyone's breathing. But I feel like that, thinking of the breath as divine and as sacred and holy, that feels very Jewish to me in a different way than in other meditation practices that I've done or learned, or you know. So that's why I love using it. Also, it's a really good concentration practice. And concentration practices are incredibly helpful in building a meditation practice.
Mm-hmm. You know, there's also a prejudice or a stereotype probably within Jewish community that our mystical practices are very intellectual and heady, and that merging of Yud He Vav He with your body, that's what strikes me the most about it, is it's so primal and basic. Not basic like...
and it gets you out of your head,
right,
actually.
Yes.
Which I think is helpful.
And that's what Jewish meditation and Kabbalistic meditation, I think, is so interesting, because it's so much is based on language, but you're going into not like the part of your brain that deals with, that talks.
Totally.
It's
I think
a spiritual
people get hung
language,
up on the intellectualization of spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you know, at least in my experience, so much of Jewish education and understanding for so long has been really based in this like very prescriptive text study kind of practice, which, you know, many people love, and I have had very interesting experiences doing that, but very different from when you're doing a meditation practice.
Oh, yeah.
My whole thing is, like I said before, like I'm not a rabbi, I'm not a scholar, I'm not that interested in like expounding the history of anything. I want to feel something.
Mm-hmm.
When I first learned how to meditate on like a mountain in New Hampshire with a bunch of hippies, I felt something that I had never felt in services where I grew up. And that really changed something for me. Because I mean, listen, it's not a unique story, right? Plenty of people find God or whatever in nature, and when you see a sunset, when, you know, you hold a newborn baby, when you're with someone who's dying, when you're in love, when, you know, like all of those things like spark something, and that's when people have what I think are referred to as religious experiences. It's not that often that happens like in a pew. That kind of feeling. What I learned quickly was that you can access that in a meditation practice. And so I was just like hungry for that. I wanted that. I wanted to feel something.
Okay. You just dropped this little teaser of this Yud He Vav He thing, just as one of three options, and you almost brushed over it. So you got to tell me.
I won't spend as much time on it, but I often, because when I'm teaching beginners, I want to give 3 or how much time I have, right? Different kinds of practices, so people can kind of like see what feels good, and then hopefully explore more. So Yud He Vav He is like a straight up Kabbalistic practice. Right? So then I like to do also like a little bit of a more like modern version of things. So I like playing with the Shema. I like doing stuff around the letter Shin. Too bad you don't have a Shin on it. But, because to me it's just like, whatever, I don't believe in coincidences. So it's like, how could the letter that sounds like shh, that starts with the word Shema to listen, Shabbat to stop, you know, like, how could that be a coincidence?
It's the structure of
like,
reality.
Give me
it's
a
no
break,
right?
right? Yeah. So I just feel like there's a lot there, and the Shema, the first line of the Shema, is such a good gateway and opening to spiritual practice. No matter how you translate it, so I like retranslating it, because often people know the like by rote translation, like "Hear, O God," or "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." That's like what people write. So already we're using the word Lord or Adonai for Yud He Vav He. It says Yud He Vav He. So right away it's like, and then here is, you know, we're like old Englishing it. But the word Shema, I would rather say listen. When I work with kids, they always say listen up. They always add an up. Like listen up! Exclamation point. Which to me feels better, because the Shema is a radical call to listen. Right? And then dun, 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 dun. We have another Yud He Vav He. We have Eloheinu, which is a weird word to translate that often breaks the brain. So play with that. And then you have echad, which is in the translation that most people know by heart, it means one, right? But it could also mean oneness. It could also mean unity. It can mean so many things. So I like playing with a prayer that so many people know and kind of say without thinking, to really like deconstruct it and play with it. And then to kind of just sit with what is the practice of listening. Because I used to be annoyed as a kid that we were told this is such an important prayer and you have to say it multiple times a day, and you're supposed to say it before you go to sleep, you're supposed to say it before you die if you know you're going to die, right? Like, also telling a kid that is like a little traumatic. But we were always instructed to say this prayer, but then we didn't do it.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, this is so important. Listen, you have to listen. And then you just go to the next thing.
Yeah.
So I like stopping and Shabbating or whatever, and listening and seeing what happens when we truly listen, and what happens when you make listening a meditation practice. So like I was saying before, the practice of meditation is knowing when you're distracted, coming back, right? So if we listen and there's like, I do like a more, it's not just like, okay, listen, like I'll help you, right? So I'll say, listen to sounds that are far away. You know, listen to sounds that are closer in. Can you hear your own heart beating? Can you hear the person next to you breathing? Like, you know, place yourself also. Because we're not doing transcendental work. Jewish meditation isn't so transcendental. It's much more like grounded in your body, in your place in space, in this world where you live, you know? Which I think can be really profound. So through this listening, maybe we get to that feeling of echad, of oneness. But we can talk, it doesn't matter. It's the actual feeling it and playing with it. And really stretching ourselves. Listen, when I first did a practice like that, I just remember being like, everything is so much noisier than I realized. Like, I can't even concentrate, because when you start really listening and paying attention to sound, everything's noisy. And that's a good observation, you know? Like, I think that's helpful. And I often, when I teach that, I often say to people, you know, see if you can hear your own heart beating. And that opens up something also. And since the high holidays are coming up, can I give you like a high holiday tip?
Absolutely.
So you know when in sort of like traditional services, you do al-chet and you tap your heart, which is such a good like physical practice, right? Like something about it feels good. I really like doing that and then stopping and feeling my heart knock back.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Like we're like, wake up, but then if you stop and like your heart beats back. And so I think there's something about just paying attention to our experience in the world can be a meditative experience. Which feels really Jewish.
Definitely. Very. Yeah. That's interesting, because I mean, doing this, it's a self-flagellation.
That's what it feels like. That's how it's sort of framed in a way. Which, again, as a kid, I'm just like, I didn't do any of those things. Like, what are you talking about? You know, like it goes
I didn't murder, lie, steal.
I'm just like, I ate or whatever. Like, what is this? So, yeah.
But it's interesting that if you're being like, hey, stop it, and your heart beats back and says, I'm still
listen,
here.
Actually, listen to me.
Yeah.
I like that. That feels good to me. There's also, you know, there's so many Jewish teachings about the heart and about listening, you know, and so I think the more I started kind of mining the tradition for contemplative practice that wasn't New Age, it was Old Age, right? Like, that's what started opening something in me and made me want to teach and want to, like, get the word out, right? Even the Yud Hey Vav Hey thing. You know, I teach that all the time. For so many people, they've never considered that as an idea. And so I'm just like, okay, well, then I have to keep teaching this, because this should be part of the Jewish experience.
Absolutely have to tell everyone with 2 ears there.
I'm like a Yud Hey Vav Hey proselyte.
I literally, like, I'm seeing you, but in my head, I'm seeing those letters.
Yeah, so you'll practice more, and the more you do it, also you can kind of play. So
I mean, I write that.
Yeah.
Every single day.
So now write it vertical, just so you have it.
It's just...
Yeah. It's really interesting. And also when you look at it vertically, I usually have something and I show people and then I say, what do you think this looks like? And some people right away like, looks like a person, but also some people are like, looks like a candle, looks like a ladder, all Jewish imagery that can be helpful, you know? Yeah. And also it could be all those things. Yeah, there's something there. I don't know. Also with the Shema.
Well, it makes perfect sense to me because it's like everything. So you can project anything you want and it gives it back to you. Yeah.
I think that's really true. Also with the Shema, you know the Kotzker Rebbe?
No.
He was, I think, in the 1800s. I don't know that much about him as a person, but I imagine him as like a curmudgeonly old man with like a big beard.
I imagine many of them like that.
Yeah, like just like a trolly kind of presence, but like beloved teacher. Yeah. Anyway, so in the Shema, in the next paragraph of the Shema, it says, place these words upon your doorpost, place these words upon your house. Upon your heart. And so his students came to him and asked, like, why does it say place it upon your heart? It should say put it in your heart. Like the language is actually clear on the upon. Yeah. And so this was like the question brought to him, and so his like famous answer was that, you have to keep putting those words on top of your heart so that when your heart inevitably breaks, they fall in. Because that's when you need it, right? Yeah. So I like thinking about that when I'm teaching stuff about the Shema too, because also when you're doing a meditation practice, so I'm usually doing this listening thing, but you can also use the Shema like we did with Yod Hey Vav Hey, right? Like you could breathe in Shema, breathe out Yisra, or you can do it like that. And I like that idea too, because it feels like you're doing that practice of placing it upon your heart. Okay, the third thing I like to teach when I'm doing beginner stuff is a chesed practice. So I learned to do, so I usually don't like doing things like this, so I'll tell you how I'm hypocritical.
Okay.
I've studied with a lot of people, and a lot of people who said they were teaching Jewish meditation, but really it was Buddhism with like some Hebrew thrown in or some, and I don't like that. Yeah. I always have said I'm not interested. It's fine if other people get a lot out of it, but for me, I have a lot of Buddhist teachers. So if I want to learn Buddhism, I'm going to go to them, right? I don't need to go to a rabbi who just recently like learned about Buddhism to learn about Buddhism, because that's what it felt like a lot. And so I don't like the idea of like putting a tallis on the Buddha and being like, this is Jewish meditation. I'm just like, no, thank you. So that said, though, this is totally a Buddhist practice that is made Jewish. Okay. But I really like it. So, and I've been doing it for so many years, like at least 2 decades. So I learned the metta practice. Metta means like loving kindness in Pali, old Buddhist language, or language used in a lot of Buddhist texts. And so I learned this from Sylvia Boorstein. And she does this whole thing about like, may I be safe, may I be, happy, may I be whatever. And then one of my Jewish meditation teachers, who's a rabbi, he retranslated it using the Sim Shalom prayer. And so basically saying like, may I be blessed with joy, may I be blessed with peace, may I be blessed with compassion, And so I really like doing that practice for a bunch of reasons. One, I think it stirs something, especially the way that I teach it and the way that I learned it was, you imagine people that you love, that like when you think of them, your heart just opens, right? So you start easy, and you wish them all these blessings. May you be blessed with love. May you be blessed with peace, And then the way I learned it from Buddhist teachers was that the way they often start is with yourself, like may I be, and that I think can be very difficult for people. So I think it's easier to start with like someone that you love.
Yes, I've also heard a pet.
Yeah,
because they're much less complicated than another person. Can also
be someone who is no longer alive, right? When I work with kids, they always pick a pet. They always ask if that's okay. And then you move it out, right? Like you expand all the people that I like, all the people maybe they didn't make it into the love category, right? All the people that I know, all the people that I don't like. That's where it gets like really interesting, because then you have to bless them. You're gonna bless someone who's like you don't like or you think is like maybe a bad person, or that's good practice because it's stretching stuff. And also it's just in your own head. So, and then yourself, and then the whole world. I just feel like you might as well zoom out. If you're going to do all these blessings, you might as well bless the whole world. Also, it's a Jewish teaching you're supposed to say 100 blessings a day. So that practice really gets you there. But I like doing that also because it's an outwardly focused practice. Mm-hmm. It's not concentration. Mm-hmm. It's using your imagination, so there's more like contemplation that's involved. But it's still coming back to these same words you repeat over and over again. Mm-hmm. And again, I only teach what I do. So I've been doing that practice for a long time, and I have found it really beneficial to me. So I'll teach it, even though I know I'm a hypocrite because I say I don't like using like Buddhist practices and dressing them up as Jewish, but whatever. If it's
real good, you can't avoid it anymore.
And listen, I've been doing it for like over 20 years, so I feel like I have enough experience that I can say like this is a good one. So usually those are the three practices that I like to teach because they're very different from each other, and they're kind of like pulling from different things. And so that I feel like gives people a good basis of just like what are we even talking about when we say Jewish meditation, instead of me just talking about it, right? So we'll do three practices and then you kind of get an idea. Mm-hmm. Also, I really like teaching Jewish meditation in a way that is as accessible as possible to people that are not Jewish, Jewish with very little education, Jewish with a lot of education. Like I've taught a lot of rabbis, I've done a lot of work. And I really like teaching practices that anyone can do and can continue without me.
Yes, yeah. I mean, well, you just taught me a whole lot that I won't need
There's your beginner.
Yeah, that's really cool.
But when you start practicing and you inevitably have questions, then, you can call me or text me. I'm happy to help. Because that's how if someone has no questions, then I know they're not practicing.
That's definitely true.
That's just how it works. Just fine. Everyone's busy,
Yeah.
But,
okay.
Yeah.
I'm feeling very inspired. Okay, tell me how you got to Mexico.
Sure.
So you have this meditation center in New York?
Yeah, I have this meditation center that was like extremely successful, unexpected. So I quit urban planning and just worked as the executive director at the Jewish Meditation Center and taught a lot and was trying to build this community and also this movement. So I worked with so many people all over the world who wanted to start meditation centers, or at least like a circle of people that they could practice with. Because I think that idea that like you don't have to go on a retreat to get your spirituality and then come home and be in the real world or your real life. Like Alan Lew once told me, I asked him, it was like at a retreat and it was like, I don't know, on the third day or something, and I was like, I feel like I'm crashing, and he was like, oh yeah, that always happens on retreat, except when you've been doing it a long time, because then it'll just feel like regular life. And so he said to me, keep doing it for like 20 years and then come back and let me know if I'm right. And I can't come back because he died, but he was right. Which is I should remember, because I was like I said, I was like 22 or something.
Yeah.
He was like, come back in 20 years and like you'll see. Okay, so I was living in Brooklyn, running this Jewish meditation center. The irony was not lost on me that I was like burnt out and I was working like 20 hours a day and not living the dream that I thought it would be to run a meditation center, because I was running a scrappy nonprofit in New York City. Yeah. And also trying to build this movement, this idea. Yeah. And also I was, as you can imagine, like a lot younger than the big shot teachers. Some of them did not take me seriously. Sure. Yeah. The Coopers always did, which I always appreciated. Very few women, very few young women. That was also part of why I started teaching, because I was like, I don't hear anybody like me talking about this stuff, so I guess I should do it, Yeah. Which I'm glad I did. And then my dad died really suddenly, and it kind of shook up a lot of things in my life. And one of the things is it made me feel a different kind of urgency about my life, because I was just like, oh my God, anyone can die at any moment. I could die at any moment. I have to make sure I'm living the life I want to be living. until that moment comes, hopefully in a very long time. But I had this new sense of urgency that I had never felt before because I had never lost a parent. And so I kind of shut down in a lot of different ways, just in like grief and not being able to kind of like figure out how to manage things. And then the Coopers had been asking me for years to come do a more like intensive study with them. And they were living in Mexico at the time. And I talked to the board of directors of the meditation center, and I said, I think it might be a good idea for me to take some time. And they were like, yes, we agree. How can we help you? And so I said, I think I want to take a couple of months and go to Mexico and be with the Coopers and kind of figure out what I need to do next and take my practice maybe to a different level. So that's what I did. So they were living in San Miguel de Allende.
You have a habit of jumping in head first at things.
Can't help it. Yeah. Just gonna do it. We'll see what happens. Right?
Yeah.
Life is an experiment. So I went to San Miguel de Allende. I rented an apartment not far away from their house, and I did this very intensive study with Shoshana. So it was funny, you know, David Cooper has been a really important teacher in my life, and I spent a lot of time with him as a student and learning from him. And when I went to Mexico, it was very clear that Shoshana was the teacher and David was my like buddy. So like David and I went to the movies. We like watched, it was like the Summer Olympics that summer, so we like watched TV. We went out to dinner a lot. But my teacher, the one teaching me, was Shoshana, which was such a fun setup for me. And I think I told you this once. I was at a silent retreat with them, and usually I would go to David's class. He would teach classes every morning. You could choose the advanced class with David or the beginner class with Shoshana. And it was like every morning. And for years I had gone to the advanced class with David because I thought, I'm advanced, you know. And then I got smarter and I started going to the beginner class, and then he like pulled me aside one day and he was like, hey, how come you're not coming to my classes? Like, where are you? And I said, like, no offense, but I don't care about your theology or hearing about other people's. And what I want is to, like I was saying before, feel something. And I feel like in Shoshana's class, that's where like hearts are opening, tears are flowing, people are transforming. She is able to help people access things that I've not experienced before. And that's where I want to be. And he was just like, fair enough, like I understand, you know. And I think he would have said also, like, she is the better teacher. Anyway, I'm pretty sure he would have said that. So that's when it just became, and then I went to Shoshana at the end of that retreat, and again, like I was really precocious. I was like 23 or something, and I said, I want to answer questions the way you answer questions. And she said, okay, I guess I will teach you everything I know, and we'll start in a month. And so that's when I started really studying with Shoshana.
Wow. And
it was incredible, and yeah.
Wow.
And that for so long, you know, I had been meditating for a long time because I started at 15. I took it really seriously. And I had been like shopping for a teacher and not feeling like I found someone. Like even studying with Alan Lew, I was like I was a little intimidated by him, so I didn't talk that much like in the classes. I talked to him more when I went on retreats with him. But I just felt so comfortable with the Coopers, and I felt so seen by them. Like they didn't see me as this young, precocious, maybe they probably did, but they also saw like, oh, there's something there, and we're gonna support her and we're gonna help her grow. And that was huge to me, especially as like a mentor collector.
There's a pattern among whatever you want to call it, masters or enlightened people or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, of this thing that you described about Shoshana earlier, where they know what you're thinking or they know what you really want to say. And then often people describe the reverse also when you look into their eyes or you are asking about them or something. It's like expansive. You can see other things through them. Did you experience something like that?
Maybe? I'm not sure. The thing with the Coopers that I loved so much is that even though it's funny, when I would go to retreats with them and they would talk about their lives, I would imagine they like lived in a cave, you know? And like were mystics that like lived, you know, in a cave on top of a mountain that you had to like climb vertically to like reach them, and they'd be like, please, may I ask you a question? And they'd be like, you're not ready. Like that's what I like imagined. And meanwhile, they're like, you know, watching House and on a treadmill.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, so, and especially when I spent time with them in Mexico, I was like, oh, they're like regular people. They're not regular people, but they're also regular people, which also feels very Jewish to me because my other meditation teachers, close meditation teachers were like Tibetan Llamas who were not normal.
Yeah.
Like, I shouldn't say not, I mean, they're not normal, but
well,
they
not
like don't drive a car.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
they live in a monastery. Everyone does stuff for them. Like, I brought one of the Lamas that I was really close with, Lama Tharchin Rinpoche. I brought him to the Jewish Meditation Center for Sukkot.
Wild?
Yeah, I just had this idea, and he was into it. And I don't know how old he was, but let's say like 150, like 4 feet tall, and like not functioning on the same plane as anyone. And anyway, so we did this whole thing, and then at the end there was like a Q&A, so people were asking questions, and that was the funniest part because someone asked Lama Tharchin about road rage. What do you do if you have road rage? And he couldn't stop laughing. He was like, I don't drive a car. Who do you think you're asking? I'm not part of your world, you know? And then told a story about like llamas through the air and having like magical earrings or something. And everyone was just like, what is happening? And I was like, this is why I love him, you know? Because like he's not operating on our plane. He's doing something else. But the Coopers were able to like access that kind of stuff, but they were very much in the world. And same with like so many, like same with Alan Lew, same with like a lot, Norman Fischer is a good example too. Like I've learned so much from Norman Fischer, and part listening to him talk about what it was like to parent, and then grandparent, because I didn't want the same life as the Coopers. Like I knew I wanted to have children. I knew I wanted to have a different kind of experience in the world than what they had. But there's not that many examples of what I wanted in the world. And so I feel like that's part of what I was looking for and trying to like pull pieces from things. And also I loved working with Shoshana also because she was very clear about what she thought I was capable of, which might have been more than what I thought I was capable of, and she was encouraging in like a different way. So she kept pushing me to do certain practices that I was very resistant to because I knew people that were really into those kinds of practices, and I thought they were zombies. Like I felt like they were working on being as detached as possible. And that was not what I ever was looking for. I don't want to be detached. I want to be incredibly attached. Like, I want to feel everything. I don't want to be numb, and I don't want to be neutral. I want to be all over the place. So one of my teachers was Bernie Glassman, and he taught me one of the most important teachings I've ever learned, which is, he said to me, if you're going to go bananas, go bananas, which is very Zen and very Bernie. But what he was talking about is really like, be all in, you know? Don't play around up here. Be in your life and feel it fully. And then do the next thing, you know? Because I also spent a lot of time with Bernie after my dad died, and he wanted me to go, he used to do, with his wife Eve, these bearing witness retreats. And he used to do one at Auschwitz. And he really wanted me to come with him to do this retreat. And it was not long after my dad died, not long after my grandpa died, who was a Holocaust survivor, who was in Dachau. And I told him, like, I don't think I should go because I think I'll just be like a puddle on the floor. Like, I don't think I can handle it. And he was like, then be a puddle. But I decided I didn't want to be a puddle at that moment. I was already having troubles, you know. I was like, I don't really need to like have more right now, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when he told me that, like, if you're gonna go bananas, go bananas. And he said it like real close to me. Bernie also, like, he used to carry a clown nose in his pocket because he also did clowning as a spiritual practice. But I remember being at a retreat with him, and someone was having like this really intense, like, emotional experience, and he just went over and put a clown nose on her, and it was really helpful to her. And these are my teachers, you know, and this is like part of what I was learning. I led a retreat. I brought Bernie Glassman, who was a very famous Buddhist Zen teacher, and I brought Danny Matt, who's like the Kabbalah translator and scholar of the United States, pretty much. And I brought them together through the Jewish Meditation Center to do a retreat that we called Zen and Zohar. And the teachers taught different things, but also we came together and did a lot of conversations where we were really like, and Bernie Glassman, as you can probably guess, is Jewish, as are so many Buddhist teachers.
Oh my God, it's like all of them.
Yeah, Norman Fischer once said to me, he was saying to me, if I had your teachers when I was your age, I wouldn't have become a Zen teacher, I would have become a rabbi.
Wow.
But because I think so many, like, you know, when Buddhism kind of like hit and in the 60s and 70s, it was like a zeitgeist, but also at that time, especially in the Jewish world, people were not entertaining questioning. And so I think people like Norman and Sylvia and Bernie and all the sort of like famous names, Jack Kornfield, like they all came from Jewish backgrounds, right? But they probably, at least how Norman talks about it, is like they weren't finding what they were looking for in Judaism and in Jewish community, but they were finding it in Buddhism, which makes total sense to me. And then they all, you know, they became these big, important teachers, and it's interesting. And it's funny because a lot of teachers that have a lot of famous names that you've heard of in the Buddhist world have like asked me for like Jewish meditation resources, or like, you know, literally like text me and it's like, do you have anything for Passover? You know, would you send that over? Which is why I like making workbooks.
I just learned that about Jack Kornfield. I always thought like, oh, this is the one that's not Jewish.
I mean,
because he has a mustache or something.
There's so many that are. It's like Sylvia Borstein's book, That's Funny You Don't Look Buddhist. You know?
Well, okay, I think there's something about definitely during that time period, the merging of where Jewish culture was and where American culture was with, you know, accepting Buddhism for the first time, or learning about Buddhism for the first time. But also there's something, you know, you'll see Jews taking leadership on like these types of just divergent cultural movements often. And I've thought about why that is. I think it's one, you know, if you're a Jew 99 times out of 100, you've only been in whatever country you're in for max 3 generations. So you're not like, oh, my father was a farmer and his father was a farmer, so I'll be a farmer.
Well, that's interesting.
Like there's a lot more freedom to entertain new ideas. And then also there's something about being Jewish that's different than being Christian or just the majority faith.
Wherever you are.
Yeah. Where I don't see this, maybe a little bit in Muslim people, but there's like the merging of ethnicity and religion where it's like, I can still be Jewish and believe whatever I want.
Yeah.
And it doesn't like, I don't have to like shun my family or leave behind my history.
Depends on your family.
Sure,
but,
sure, yes.
But yeah,
yes.
I think that's true. And I think along with that, there is something, and like I'm happy if someone wants to argue with me about this, but at least in my understanding and experience, there's something in so many Jewish people that like we're like a people of seekers. Like it just feels really Jewish to, ask questions, right?
Yes,
Always. And
yes.
just to be kind of like searching for what you need and want and being proactive about it.
Yeah. On a very like fundamental level of just how Judaism is practiced religiously, you only learn about things through reading about an argument.
Yeah.
You don't just be like, okay, this is how it is. It's even in like, hyper orthodox where that's the goal to just indoctrinate you. Even the medium of being indoctrinated is like, here's two
still
opinions.
Presenting the argument.
Yeah. Yeah, so that creates some very interesting and very powerful side effects, maybe.
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a coincidence that like so many, forget the teachers, so many of American Buddhists, I think there was a study done at one point and it was like 2/3 of American Buddhists are Jewish. That is not surprising to me at all.
Yeah.
It
there was a major hole in Jewish culture for all of this. Yeah.
It's interesting because when I first started the Jewish Meditation Center, it really felt like nothing like it exists, especially the way we did it, because it was very grassroots and it was very like, I wasn't the charismatic leader that everyone should gather around. It was like we trained 50 people to lead. And we rotated leadership, and different people were always, speaking and teaching and writing and sharing, and it was so much about learning together, and that hadn't really been done before in that kind of way, especially with kind of like a younger demographic. There are plenty of people who've been meditating or creating Jewish meditation things forever, probably. But this put it at a different scale in a different way. And although it was like surprising at the time that like so many people were interested in coming to things and wanting more, like looking back, it's also like, oh, of course. Because now there's so many more research, even just like going to the library or the bookstore, there's so many more books about Jewish contemplative practice and spirituality and mysticism. And, when I first started looking when I was a teenager, I couldn't find anything. It was like very hard to find the resources I was looking for. Someone in college gave me the R.A. Kaplan book, Jewish Meditation, which for a very long time was just the book that everyone read. And although I appreciated a lot of the book and the practices and stuff, I also was like, this doesn't feel like it's for me. Because it was like, all male pronouns for God. It was just, it's written of its time and by a man. And it just felt like, okay, like I can appreciate it, but that's not really what I want.
It reminds me, the Jewish Meditation Center and your story behind it reminds me of like one of those houses in Berkeley during the 60s where you hear about like, you just show up for dinner, you drop acid, and Ram Dass passes through, and next week you show up for dinner and drop acid, and some other person passes through, and just it becomes like a hub of different ideas being traded that there's no book for yet,
Right.
But all these ideas merging together. I mean, you have Jewish people with lamas and people who, there's no class that you could take anywhere else. You have to be with those people in person.
Yeah.
It's a very special
It was.
history.
It felt so special. Like that was not a plan of mine. I was an urban planner. I went to engineering school before that. I've always been like wacky, and I had my meditation practice, but it was like a personal, private practice. Like I didn't talk about it. When I would go to meditation retreats, I wouldn't even tell people what I was doing. I just said I was going on a trip because I was like, I don't want to explain.
Wow.
So also when I started...
It was like it was gestating.
Yeah, and then when I started the Jewish Meditation Center, I was like, I had to come out as like, for some people they thought I was just like a weirdo. I had urban planning colleagues literally call me and say, did you start a cult? What are you doing? And I was like, no, I didn't start a cult. I'm like, I'm just tweaking an old religion. I'm like, what on earth is happening? But also...
That's what all cult leaders would say.
Yeah. I should have done it differently so I could like make money or something. One of my teachers devotional route because then you wouldn't have to worry about money ever. But I was like, grassroots, shared leadership, no money. What was I just gonna say? I lost my thread. Well, if it's important, it'll come back.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, speaking of then, you told me you had a psychedelics story that was particularly interesting or fun.
I don't really have a psychedelic story, although I can tell you that having meditated since I'm 15, when later I did try psychedelics, I was like, this is fun, but also I've been here before. And when you access that through meditation, there's no like calm down, and you can just do it anytime you want, anywhere, and turn it on and off. So that was good for me, and it's also part of what, I love teaching teenagers, because I can teach them how to access that feeling, so that if and when they do try different substances, they'll also have that same realization of like, oh, I don't actually need. Sometimes you can want it, but you don't need it to be able to access those kinds of experiences. But I did tell you I would tell you a spirit guide story.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's what I was thinking of.
Which I guess maybe you could say is psychedelic, but
whatever, mystical.
So once I was on a retreat with the Coopers, and I don't remember how long it was, probably a week, silent retreat, and it was winter time, and I was near a frozen lake. And I remember sitting by this lake, and I had never sat.
Wait, a frozen lake in Mexico?
No. This was in upstate New York.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Or Connecticut. I'd never spent that much time at a frozen lake, so I didn't know it makes crazy sounds from like the water moving.
I didn't know that either.
So it makes sounds like wah wah, like weird sounds. And so I was just sitting there like, whoa, this is so cool. Because also when you stop and listen, you hear things you've never heard before, and you have different experiences when you pause and pay attention. And so I was just like sitting there, and then I had this like wave of fear, which I'm not even sure where it came from, but it was like felt really real. And then I had what they call silent retreats, or any kind of meditation retreats, in the Buddhist world especially, but they call it interviews. You have like interviews with a teacher. And so I had an interview with David Cooper. So I went to go talk to him, and I told him about this experience. I was sitting by the lake, and everything was like great and cool. And then all of a sudden, I just had this like wave of fear, and I'm not really sure like what to do with it, but like I'm really feeling it, and I don't know what's going on. Because sometimes when you are meditating in that intense of a way, you just have like feelings that come up, and then you have a choice, right? You can like squash them back down.
Yeah.
Or ignore them, or you can like investigate and be like, what is this feeling? What does it feel like in my body, in my brain? If this feeling was a color, what color would it be? If I was going to describe this feeling to someone who's never felt this before, how would I describe it? You start getting curious, because that's really good practice for meditation and for like really being a witness to your own thoughts and what's going on in your mind. So I was like, I know all that, I'm doing all that, but like I don't like this feeling of fear. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
You know? When you have feelings of like bliss, you're not complaining that you don't want to feel it.
Yeah.
But fear is like a whole other thing. So he said to me, you have to trust your spirit guide. She will protect you. And so first I loved that he said she. I was like, he gets me, you know? And I was like, spirit guide? I never thought about that as an idea. Like, no one ever has brought that up to me. So I was like,
he just kind of dropped that?
Yeah, I was like, I guess I should meet this spirit guide that he's referring to, because I don't know who she is. And then I went and took a nap. Or I laid down, I can't remember. So either I was dreaming or hallucinating. And I had this vision, and this is so me, and it's so annoyingly me, of this cartoon Daisy with like her leaf hand on her hip. Like Daisy, you know?
Yeah.
And she was like, hey, I'm your spirit guide. And I was like, what? No. I want like a wolf, or like, you're not the right spirit guide. She was like, sorry, honey, I'm your spirit guide. And then I woke up. And that was like, I don't even know how long ago, decades. And since then, I'm just like, oh yeah, my spirit guide is a sassy cartoon Daisy. And that makes perfect sense to me. And she kind of came to be at that retreat. But that was like a long time ago. And I still, also it makes me laugh. Like I just still find it so entertaining. Because I remember just being like, no, sorry, I reject this. And she was like, you don't get to choose.
Well, it sounds like the exact opposite of fear, that's for sure.
Yeah, so there's like something, like there's something there. So when we were talking about, before we started, we were talking about spirit guides, I was like, I should probably share my spirit guide. But it also was so annoying because like I was like, I thought I would have something like majestic.
Oh, I know, cartoon
we can't
Daisy.
choose.
Yeah. Has this Daisy been with you since?
Oh yeah, she like comes and visits. Mm-hmm. But again, she like it makes me laugh. So I think it's just like a helpful thing to pop in my head.
Yeah.
And then I went a long time ago to you know the artist Murakami?
I don't think so. Actually.
Not the author, but there's a visual artist, and he had like a big retrospective. I think like at MoMA or something in New York, or I can't remember where I saw it. And he does so many cartoon daisies.
Oh, really?
I'll send you a picture. And I was like, oh my god.
Oh, yes,
she's
okay.
Here.
I definitely know the daisy guy. Yeah.
And I was like, that's the daisy. I've never seen it before. And I was like, oh wow.
And there's 1,000 of them?
Yeah, and I was like in a room up here, and I was like, okay. I get it. So, yeah.
Not just one. Hundreds of thousands.
Yeah. I felt very comfortable, but it was also like, wow okay. That's a lot.
Yeah. It's kind of like all too on the nose. It's like really.
But that's it. That's so often I feel like what we want, these religious experiences that are like, you know, the sky parting and a voice talking to you, or you know, a light show or fireworks, blah blah. And the reality, at least in my experience, is that really deeply powerful and transformative spiritual experiences don't happen like that. Like
at least the ones that are actually change your life, not just for a day or so, but actually change your trajectory.
Yeah, I've had really weird experiences. I was sitting at my desk once when I was working as an urban planner, and I had like all these paper at like a messy desk. I had all these papers on my desk, and one Post-it started spinning. And I was like, what the, you know? And then I don't even remember, I was like, maybe there's some like magic word written on this. I don't even remember what was on it. I just remember sitting there like, this is not normal. Like something is happening. I once, it was like around the same time period, I got a sunburn from the inside out. It was like nighttime, and I was doing some like intense meditation thing. I was like at a class or something. And I was wearing a necklace like this, but like a bigger charm. And I was like building heat in my body when I was doing this practice. And then the next day I had a sunburn on my chest, and you could see the outline of my charm. Like weird stuff. Like weird stuff. I remember sitting once in a yoga class and felt this like strong wind, like it blew my hair, you know? And so I opened my eyes because I was like, what just happened? Like, did someone like turn on a fan in front of me or open a door, right? Nothing. No one else's eyes were open. And I was just like, okay. Like, stuff like that just started happening to me. It's a much longer story, but I once went blind at a concert. Just like all kinds of things. And I can't blame like drugs or, you know, like that just really wasn't what I was doing. And so I was at that time when all those crazy things were happening, and I met certain people that like changed my life in different ways. I was just like, okay, I'm tuned in right now. And I remember talking to, I think I talked to Alan Lew about that, but I definitely talked to David and Shoshana about it. And I was like, I'm just having all these like really weird experiences that just cannot be explained, and I'm not really sure what to like do with it. And David was like, oh, you should read this book of mine. I remember he was like, not a bestseller. Like where he wrote down his like dreams and stuff. He was like, just because you're describing stuff that is very familiar, and also like if you just read the like,
No worries.
if you just read the autobiographies of spiritual leaders or meditators or whatever, he's like, you're just gonna see a lot of the same patterns. He's like, because what you're describing, like, I know it feels like you're the only person in the world that's experienced that. He's like, but you're really, really not. And he's like, what I think is happening is not that you're seeing things that aren't there. You're just seeing more. You're just really opening up your mind. And that was a big part of my learning with the Coopers, because I remember they said to me, like, because I said once, like, I just feel like I'm free falling. Like, it's not a good feeling, actually.
Yeah.
And I'm, like, nervous because I'm having all these weird experiences that seem related to my meditation practice. And they were kind of like, good. Like, the only thing you can hit is your own mind. So keep going. And I remember once at a retreat, oh, this is a good story, actually. I forgot about it. I brought them to do a retreat in Brooklyn. And so we were all sitting together, and then it was time for, like, questions. And I remember having this moment where I was like, should I out myself as a weirdo? Because I was, like, running this organization. People, like, thought highly of me, you know? And I was like, here's my opportunity. I really have a question I want to ask, but it's definitely going to make me sound crazy. But I was like, gotta do it, right? So I raised my hand, and this at this point I'd known the Coopers for years and felt obviously like super comfortable with them, but I had never asked them this question before. So I'd been doing
And in front of everybody.
Yeah, in front of a lot of people. I had been doing concentration practice for a really long time. I did concentration practice for many, many years where I counted my breath. So I would like count up to 7 and then back to 1, and it's a really good sort of like brain training exercise. And often when people do a lot of concentration practice, that's when all that crazy stuff happens, because your concentration practice is like a fidget spinner for your brain. So it like gives your brain something to do, and it kind of frees up other things to be available to you. I don't know if that makes sense, but if you do it, it'll make sense. So I've been doing concentration practice for a long time, and what I noticed is that so often when I was sitting and I was doing it, after a few minutes, I don't know how to describe this except that I would feel like a whoosh in my body, like energy, just being like whoosh, and it was downward or upward. It like kind of didn't make a difference, but it was like jolting.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like falling asleep. It wasn't like that. I was very awake, and it was just like whoosh, and it felt crazy. And I never said anything to her, but I was like, this has kind of been going on for like 10 years. So I feel like at this point I should like say something.
Yeah.
So I raised my hand and I basically said that, so they were like, what do you do when you feel that? I was like, well, usually it like surprises me, so like I open my eyes and it kind of like knocks me out of whatever I'm doing, and then I go back and then it happens again, and I just sit with it. I just pay attention. And they were like, what would happen if you went with it instead of just sitting with it, if you went with it? And I was like, well, then I kind of feel like I would just take off. And they both leaned forward and they were like, then take off. And I was like, that's why they're my teachers, you know? Yeah. So then I was like, oh, okay. So then the next time it happened, I tried to not fight it, right? To go with it, and then it never happened again. It happened to me every day for 10 years. Every day for 10 years. And then it never happened again.
Wow.
After I listened
Scared
to
it off.
Yeah, but I was also like, that's why they're my teachers, right? Because I had other teachers that I know because I had asked similar questions, whatever, they would never tell me to take off. They'd be like, you need to get grounded, you need to, which is probably like protective. But the Coopers didn't care
you so
about
well.
that.
Yeah.
And they knew I was not gonna like go off the deep end. Like there was no, thankfully in my life, like there's no risk that I'm going to go crazy. If I was gonna go crazy, it would have happened.
Yeah.
So I like have a very strong foundation. So I'm safe, which I think you need in order to be free. Like you have to be able to figure out how to be safe in order to feel free. So I feel like I had that, so they felt comfortable just being like, go for it.
Wow, that's really interesting.
And that whooshing feeling, I mean, that feels like a psychedelic experience.
Oh yeah, I have had a small version of, well, actually no, not small at all, but I was doing a concentration practice. Probably the only time I've really stuck with something for many months.
Was it for 618 days?
No. This was before all the 618 stuff. Yeah, probably unlocked whatever that was. But I would do open-eyed, in this garage actually, I'd just stare at like a mark on the wall, open-eyed, for about an hour a day, and just concentrate, and the only thing else besides that would be maybe breath, but I try and use this, I just pick the most boring thing I could think of. How long can I concentrate on something incredibly understimulating? And I remember my eyes were open, and I would, first in my imaginal, in my mind's eye, but then after a few weeks in my actual vision, it would be like the better I concentrate, the things would start to appear. Ooh. And it was pretty scary, but it was as if like I've never heard it described that way. It now makes sense to me. Concentrating on one thing frees up your other senses to be aware of things because they're not busy anymore.
Yeah, that's why people get like addicted to TM, to transcendental meditation, because it puts you in a trance state, and that is fun and interesting.
Yes.
And you want to get back there.
Yeah. Best TV show there is, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're the star of your own movie.
Yeah.
And everyone else is just like playing part. It's real main character energy. I think I'm all for people doing whatever spiritual practices, help them. I think with those kinds of practices, sometimes it's really easy to just get so wrapped up in your own stuff. And then that just feeds your ego, and that's like when narcissists kind of get like a free pass in the spirituality world. And you can see it. You see it everywhere.
Yeah.
Of like, just like out of control egos, so many men, right? And like, and that's also when Shoshana was pushing me to do certain practices, and I was resistant to it. She was like, what are you doing? What are you so resistant about? And I told her what I told you, like, I know people that do those, and I don't want to be like them. And then her response was, those people you're talking about, are they men? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, you won't be like that. We do it differently.
What were the practices?
They were the jhanas. You can Google it. It's like Jhana. It's I think Tibetan Buddhist practices that are just kind of like a stepped practice where you're opening your mind to do more. And in those kinds of practices, the goal is usually this elusive idea of enlightenment, whatever that might mean, right? And we all we project what we think enlightenment means. What I loved about, I remember Lama Tharchin Rinpoche talking about enlightenment is that we're already enlightened. You just have to wake up to it. You just have to notice. And that, again, felt really Jewish to me. I feel like it's a very, very Jewish practice and concept to fake it till you make it. We light candles to bring light into our homes and into the world when we might not feel like we're bringing light or that there is light available, but we still do it. And I don't know, I just think doing practices like that have been so helpful and nourishing to me. To not feel like I have to walk through a wall or bend a spoon or levitate to be my best, fullest, most evolved self. I mean, for me, it's parenting my children has actually been the most enlightening experience of my life so far. And feeling my heart break and burst open, and also have to make their lunches and be in the mundanity. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Okay. Of just my life, my daily life, and figuring out how do we make that sacred feels very Jewish to me, and also feels like my work in the world. I've had a lot of teachers, including Shoshana and including Lama Tharchin, push me that I should do extended retreats. I have friends who did 3-year retreats. That's a very Tibetan Buddhist thing.
Did you say 3 years? Oh, wow.
And I've had different teachers that really pushed me that I should do that because they said, we think, Shoshana said to me once, what took me 30 years, I think you could do much faster, but you need to practice. You need time and space to do the practice, and you're not going to do that when you're working in the world. You don't have time. So you should do a retreat. And I thought about it a lot because I have friends who did it. and I can see the power of it, but it also felt not right for me, right? Like I was just like, isn't one of the like most important teachings in Judaism is don't separate yourself from the community, right? I just felt like I don't want to be I was like, even if it takes me 100 years or 100 lifetimes, I want to figure it out in my life. I want to figure out how do we, it's going back actually to like Yod-Heh Vav-Heh as a breath. How do we invoke divinity in everything? How do I like wake up and feel the fullest expression of being a human being and instill that in my kids? Because that's honestly my goal if I'm going to have a goal. Because I want to be so here and fully present so that I don't miss a thing.
Yeah. Many cultures have some version of like a shaman or a monk that's like outside society, on the outskirts, and they're doing something, and often it's seen as kind of like on behalf of regular people, but there's no model for that in Jews, so it's...
I think some people put like rebbes up in that.
Yeah,
but even the rabbis usually had families.
Sure, yeah, always. Almost always, anyways.
Yeah.
And still like part of a minyan, part of davening, like all of that together. Everything's always together. So it's interesting, like if that's not an option. Yeah. It's certainly a different path, but it's certainly the same goal.
Yeah. And I also think it goes back to that feeling I had when my dad died about urgency. I was like, I don't want to pull myself out of the world for 3 years. So much could happen in 3 years. Like it just, like that idea just did not feel like the right thing for me at all. And yeah, I mean, we'll see if I change, come back in 20 years and see if like my mind has changed. But I'm pretty sure that I feel good about that decision.
Yeah. Okay, this is a perfect segue for, I read one of your articles on mindfulness and activism, and this seems very relevant.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yes. Very crazy. I mean, I feel like for the last 5 years, every month, I've been like, okay, that was bad, but now it's gotten really crazy. Next month it just doubles. Yeah. It just feels like we're on an accelerating path of
and we're supposed chaos. To be getting older and having more perspective and being able to like put things in perspective, and like we can't.
Yeah. Okay, so what's kind of your how do you see mindfulness and activism?
Okay, so first, I don't really love using the term mindfulness. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Mindfulness is a kind of meditation practice. So it's being mindful of, the way it's usually defined is that you're being mindful of every moment to moment without judgment. It's like really paying attention to in your body, in your mind, like just like what's happening moment to moment. So often mindfulness is kind of used as a catch-all for like spirituality or like meditative anything. So it kind of bugs me to use it a lot because it's like a specific, at least in my world, it's like a specific practice. And I think people get lost in mindfulness. There's some people who are like, I swear I'll answer your question, but I'll just finish this.
This is an important explanation here.
Who are just like, oh, I'm very mindful.
Yeah.
And like, they're not. I practice mindfulness. It's like, okay. And then they're like a jerk or whatever.
Yeah.
Because and this goes to activism, when I teach meditation, I also try to always be really clear that like, I do not care if you get really good at sitting still on a cushion or a chair or the floor or whatever, and that you look the part and you look serene, or even maybe that you feel serene. I do not care. What I care about is how that helps you be in the world, how that helps you relationship with other people and beings and your environment and your community, and because what I learned is, when I was talking about I was resisting doing certain practices because the models I had were not people that I wanted to be like, and what I learned is that meditation doesn't change your personality, right? So if you're not nice and you meditate, you'll become someone who's not nice who meditates,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm interested in transformation, right? So that doesn't happen just from sitting still. That happens from like learning what is changing in your brain and how you use that and how you become more present, how you have this, I think meditation gives you a like a superhero ability of like stopping time a little bit, so that instead of just reacting right away to things, you actually have time to respond,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully mindfully and skillfully. But whatever, that might take a long time to like build in the skills. But at least you can like stop and just see what's happening.
Yeah.
In a way that I think most people just can't access without practicing it.
Mm-hmm.
I know I couldn't for sure. Okay, so about activism. What I learned from one of my teachers, Rachel Cowan, was that, and I quote her a lot on this, is anger is, what did she say? Hold on, let me think. She said, anger is a great catalyst and terrible fuel. So anger sometimes makes us act, but it doesn't help us build a movement, and it doesn't help us change the world, right? So we need better fuel. Anger is a good start,
Wow.
but we need fuel to be able to really change the world for the better. And to me, meditation is incredibly good fuel, because like that idea of it being a fidget spinner for the brain, it gives you the ability, you have to start using your practices when you're not agitated, angry, upset, right? So that you have a muscle memory, so that when you are in a space where you're angry and want to make change and are pissed off about the state of your country or the world, that you can coast a little bit.
Uh-huh.
That your practice can come up in a way that actually gives you fuel to keep going. Because it is hard to keep going when it seems like the world is falling apart, and you feel like a very small entity that can't really do much. It's very hard to pick up the phone and call your senators, or go to a protest, or send a check to which organization now, or to just read the news right now every single day and just be so devastated and heartbroken for individuals, families, communities, the world. Like, it's very, very hard to maintain that. And so if you want to not shut down, if you want to be able to do as much as you can to make the world a better place, then you need fuel.
I've never thought of the difference between those two things before. That's a really
So I feel like part of when I'm teaching meditation is I'm also teaching people how to come back to something that can help them keep going, right? And it can be in small and big ways. But that's part of I don't want to be a zombie. Like when I read about another fucking school shooting, I don't want to be numb to that.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be, as a human being, and especially as a parent, right? I want to not shut down. I don't want to read about it. I don't want to feel that heartbrokenness and that intense fear and sadness and anger. But I also know that I need to at least tap into that so that I know where to go next.
And I mean, it's evident to me, all of these conflicts are using anger as fuel exclusively. And that's why things are getting more and more chaotic and creating more things to be angry about.
Yeah, and I'm not kumbaya, like everyone is a human being, we should all come together, and I do believe that everyone is a human being. I don't think anyone should be murdered and stuff, but because I feel like now we have to say that. Seems like a general thing, but but I also think some people are wrong, and they say things that are terrible and do things that are terrible and need to be called out. That's also part of a meditation practice, right? Like, meditation forces you to to understand that you can't logic your way in and out of things. There's only so much you can intellectualize, right? At some point, your brain breaks down and you can't actually figure it all out, and you have to just feel through it. And meditation, I feel like, gives you the opportunity to practice that. Mm-hmm. And to be able to hold a lot of things at once that don't make sense. Because that's life.
Yes. Yeah. Without maintain presence with that.
Yeah, without maybe completely falling apart.
Yeah.
Right? I remember during the George Bush era, George W. Bush era, right? Yeah. About the Iraq War. I was living in San Francisco at the time and was going to all these protests, and even though it seemed like, I don't know how many people were actually on the street, but it seemed like millions of people, and then it seemed like for nothing because we went into war anyway, even though it was so obvious and clear that it wasn't for reasons that we were being told, and I remember just feeling so broken and like devastated because it was like, but I did all the things that, because I was young, and I just was so confused because, and I continue feeling that way, I guess, in our current state. But I remember talking to Shoshana about that and just feeling like I'm always falling apart. Like I'm just like I read the news and I'm crying, or I'm so upset about stuff and it doesn't feel helpful, And she asked me some question, and I said, well, I feel like maybe I'm not falling apart correctly. Like maybe there's a better way, which is like probably says something about my personality. I was like, I feel like maybe I could do this better. And I remember her saying like, she said to me like, what's your goal here, like on Earth? And I was like, I don't know. However old I was at the time, even now, I don't know if I can answer that, but I was just like, I have no idea. And she said, well, I think one of your goals is probably to be able to hold the suffering of the world and make it better. She's like, I just think that's probably one of your goals. So I was like, okay, like that sounds pretty good. Like, I would like to do that, She was like, okay, so here's the thing. She was like, if you're going to really try to hold all the suffering of the world, it's not going to be pretty. And you're going to keep falling apart. And it's not going to look good. And it's not going to feel good either. And she's like, but the thing is, when you do that, every time you fall apart, and you can hold more. So she said, like, however long it takes you, if that's your goal and that's what you're trying to do, you'll get there.
Wow.
And so I think all of that is like part of building a spiritual practice and meditation practice, is really thinking about like, why? Because for some people, they're like, I'm anxious and I don't want to be anxious. So I'm going to do all these practices to help me not be anxious. And there's nothing wrong with, everyone should figure out, what helps them and what works for them. But I think there's more. And I think we have to look past our own experience a little bit if we want to have an impact on the world for the positive while we're here. Some people might not care about that, but I think most people do. Or at least they care about for the people they love.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that, yes, definitely most people, but especially after they feel like those, like they can handle their anxiety. Or they can handle like whatever the primary problem with maintaining yourself is. Once that is, like you're saying, once you feel safe a little bit, it's human nature to want to.
And like, there's a buzzword a lot in like parenting world about we want to teach our kids to like regulate their emotions or whatever. And I think a lot about co-regulation, because I think also as parents, we actually can't teach regulation without co-regulation. So we have to show and model and be in it with our kids, right? And also, I think it's important to feel it ourselves and to teach everyone that we're also always co-regulating with the world. The whole world is like, we have, I teach, one of the things about being a meditation teacher is you like kind of have to brainwash your children. So my kids are like really good at taking deep breaths. But I also teach them that like your exhale is the inhale of everything green on the planet, right? And your inhale is the exhale of everything green on the planet. We're all breathing together. The whole world is breathing with us, for us, in us. And we are too. And that's really important, I feel like, because that helps you not feel so alone and like drifting around in your world, to feel like you're a part of the world, an important part of the world, and that that interconnection, we can intellectualize it, but when you're breathing and you remember that, you can feel it, and that changes something, I think, in all of us when we start paying attention to that, and then that also is good fuel.
Yes, for sure. Yes, yeah, interconnection. The biggest little leap in logic, which sounds very simple intellectually, but it's a much bigger task to embody it, is that helping yourself is helping others is helping yourself.
Totally.
You can't burn out when you can actually, because why would you burn out? You're just, throwing the whole system off balance.
Yeah.
You can help everyone, including yourself, together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's funny because so many people say that in different ways, but we don't have that many examples of people doing it.
No.
Or I guess you have to look for it.
Yeah. Well, and it's not like, oh, now that I understand that, it's done
right,
forever.
Right.
It lasts for about 5 minutes. You got to relearn it all.
Because so much of it is also especially because we're getting into the high holidays now, so I'm thinking a lot about just patterns, and this is the time of year where we're supposed to be reflecting on our patterns, right? And see what am I getting stuck in every year? Mm-hmm. What are these loops that are holding me? And then how do I disrupt it? How do I change things? How do I go in a different direction, or have different targets this year? And how do I get there? And I think a lot of these practices just naturally help you see that. When you meditate, you also have to notice, or you're dead, I guess, what thoughts just come up again and again and again. We usually have a top 10. And it could be people that we have stuff that's unresolved with, could be a fantasy about the future, a regret about the past, a family issue that you're still trying to figure out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our brains just go back to the same things. And sometimes we need to just sit quietly to watch it, to understand it, and then change it. Or be I don't need that anymore, actually. I tell people all the time, including my children, when they're caught in a loop, that you can say to yourself, this particular narrative is not helpful, and I'm going to think about something else, actually. Mm-hmm. And you can do that in meditation in a way that I think is really safe, because again, it's just you talking to yourself. It's just you in your own head. And you can do it for as long or short as you want. And you can, you have a lot of power. And so it's a nice practice because you get to pick and choose how you practice it. It's not like having a really difficult conversation with, your mom or something, where you have another person there and, you might think you know exactly how they're going to respond, but you don't really know for sure.
Yeah.
But when you do it in your own head, it kind of helps you maybe even prepare for the actual conversation. But also sometimes we don't have the opportunity, right? Sometimes people die, or we can't communicate with someone for some reason, and we have something unresolved. There are ways that you can kind of try to find something in yourself and in your own brain so that you don't feel that hang up forever.
Yeah, and it's very difficult to do that without a quiet mind, or a regularly quieted mind.
Yeah.
The answer is probably usually obvious. Just think about this in that way, but to actually change your thinking is often truly impossible. It's not an issue of intelligence or knowing the answer.
Yeah. When I teach kids, I usually start, when we start talking about just what is meditation and what are we talking about, I usually start by saying do not imagine a purple elephant. Don't do it. Don't let your brain think about a purple elephant. And of course, everyone's thinking about purple elephants, right? And so it's just good to be reminded, I think, that we cannot control what's going on in our minds. Actually, things just pop up and things come and go, and that's just part of being alive. And again, I don't want to block everything out. That's not my goal. So I want to see the purple elephant, and then I want to be able to send it on its way, right? So I want to have capacity and the power in my own mind to kind of see everything and then pick and choose what I want to spend time with. And that just requires practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of practice. Okay, last thing I want to hear about. Maybe you could tell us what you've been working on and what is on the horizon.
Sure.
And how people can learn from you.
Okay. So I have a really weird career. So I teach meditation all over the place, and then I do consulting with a lot of different nonprofits and foundations, and I do like communications work and digital marketing and stuff. It's all really connected through like storytelling and community building. That's like pretty much everything that I do. Even when I started the Jewish Meditation Center, and my urban planning friends were like, "What are you doing?" The reality was like I wasn't doing things that different from what I was doing before, because as an urban planner, my specialty was like community, some economic development, but community development for sure. And my last big urban planning job before I started the Jewish Meditation Center was working with a lot of different people to redesign the entire east side of Manhattan for bicycle and pedestrian safety. And part of doing that, there are a lot of different parts of doing it. So first I looked at what are the most dangerous intersections in New York City, and what do I think could be fixed at those intersections, like physically, to make them less dangerous. Then I did community meetings in every single neighborhood on the east side of Manhattan and showed people what was possible.
Holy.
And then did these like design charrettes or like visioning meetings where we had people redesign the intersections in their neighborhoods using urban planning tools that were actually possible. And then we implemented them. We worked with the Department of Transportation, and those things were implemented, which is incredible, and like work I'm so proud of. And then when I started the Jewish Meditation Center, I was
it should be noted that this was in New York City. This is like I don't know, the Olympics of, changing a community like this.
Very
yeah.
Like, don't give me a small project, right? Give me something impossible. That's to like future clients. Give me an impossible project and I will like jump in. But then when I started the Jewish Meditation Center, I was like, oh, this is really similar work, because I'm helping people redesign intersections. Just not necessarily physical roads, right? But it's still intersections, and it's still really having to see and figure out what is happening, what do I want to be different, or what do I want more or less of, and then how do I do it? It's the same work. So anyway, so do all kinds of consulting stuff.
There's a wild synchronicity
there. For meditation stuff, I have a lot of stuff going on right now. So you can always go to my website, AlisonLaichter.com, because I try to put things up when I can. I teach a lot of classes that aren't like open to the public, so I don't put all that up there, but I try every time I do have anything open to share it. So if you're in New York or Brooklyn and Rosh Hashanah, I'm leading Rosh Hashanah happenings with the neighborhood in Williamsburg, and I'm in San Diego doing stuff for Yom Kippur at Tiferet Israel. I used to do more classes online. I might do more of that in 2026 if people ask me, if people want that.
I'll sign up.
All right, because I haven't done it because I've been so busy like parenting tiny children, you know. But now I have a little bit of more time. I also do a lot of like mystic in residencies at different places.
What does that mean? I saw that on your website.
So I've done festivals, retreats.
You are the mystic in residency.
Or just
awesome.
like at JCCs or museums or like for a Shabbat or for a weekend or whatever, where I teach meditation, and I'm usually a part of whatever else is going on, and just trying to like infuse time together with Jewish spiritual practice.
Very cool.
I love teaching. I also want to revive this in the next year because I took a little break, but I was doing a lot of classes around meditation and parenting, and how to make parenting a meditation practice. Also because, at least in my experience, and I know for so many people, their meditation practice kind of gets put on hold when they have kids because like I don't have time,
Yeah.
or like I'm up in the middle of the night, like I'm so tired, and
Yeah.
so because I had to figure it out for myself, about like, okay, my meditation practice is going to look totally different. It's going to look totally different now than what it looked like when I was 22. And so I feel like I've learned a lot, and now I've worked with so many parents on like how do you really infuse parenting with meditation and just make parenting your meditation practice. And that doesn't mean just like calling it that, like actually doing practices. Also, like some of my most intense meditation experiences in the past couple of years were holding a baby at 3 a.m. and just being like, okay, here I am. Let me like feel the weight of this baby in my arms. Let me look at their feet. Let me memorize the shape of their ears. Let me regulate my breath with their breath. Let me take this in and be fully present instead of like scrolling on my phone and being mad that I'm up in 3 a.m. Like that's not that helpful to me anyway. And now it's interesting because now I'm not most of the time up at 3 a.m. holding anybody. And so like now I can see like, okay, what does my meditation practice look like with my kids? And how do we like infuse meditation in our everyday? Because I also think like some people might do this, but like I don't think my 4-year-old is gonna sit like cross-legged in front of me doing deep breathing. Like he doesn't have time for that. He's very busy, he has a lot of things he has to do, and a lot of things he has to tell me, a lot to say, and a lot of energy, right? So my meditation practice is just gonna look different. And that's great, because I also like I want to evolve always as a human being, but also my practice. Okay, sorry, I'm answering your question. I'm putting out on Monday.
That was exactly what I was asking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Today's Friday, right? So in a couple of days, I'm going to put out a High Holidays meditation guidebook. I love making workbooks for different things and different holidays. So it has like some meditation practice and instruction that people can use. And it has a practice tracker for the days of awe. So you can like look at the 10 days and decide like, okay, what am I going to do to like up my practices or like make some commitments here. I love writing meditation, so like journal prompts, just some like inspiration to get going into this next season and next holiday.
Cool.
And yeah, I think in the new year, I think I'm going to do more teaching. Because like I said, I've taken like a little bit of a break. So I just need to figure out how and where and what that looks like.
I need this parenting meditation 1,000%.
It's been really great. Yeah, I took a little break, but I think I'm going to revive it because it was so helpful.
I will be like the most devoted student. It is, because I mean, well, I'll say this. I feel like I've meditated on a regular basis, sort of, but it's nothing like before kids, because almost all the time with young kids, if I close my eyes, I'm asleep in 30 seconds.
You're just tired.
I can't sit down and focus. Like
I think that's one of the big things, especially when I work with parents of like babies or like very small kids, where they're so sleep deprived and like in that tortured state of just like not having enough sleep. So yeah, I can't tell them like sit down and close your eyes and meditate. I want to be like, go lay down.
I'll literally
let me
be
like tuck
snoring.
you in. Yeah. So you have to do it differently. So the way that I've learned to do it and the way that I've taught so many people is like, let's look at your actual life. Like let's not be in like a dream world about that my kid's gonna nap and then I'm gonna, do the laundry and meditate or like work. Like no one has time in our world of people with little kids. No one has time. So you have to look at what am I doing anyway, and how do I make that a meditation practice? So like I said, when my kids were really little and kept me up all night, I was just like, okay, I'm up in the middle of the night anyway. I'm breathing anyway. I'm sitting in a dark room and I can't fall asleep because I don't want to drop them, and I don't want to be on my phone. So I'm going to make this my meditation practice. So then I think that also starts building a practice where you start thinking like, okay, how do I make my mundane life a sacred practice? So maybe it's the way you brush your teeth every morning, Maybe it's how you prepare breakfast or eat breakfast or drink coffee, or, you know, like you have to just kind of see like, okay, what are things that I'm doing every day and how can I make that a practice? And how can I involve my kids? So like I used to tell parents all the time, especially when my kids were little, that when I would walk them in the stroller, I would do a walking meditation because I'm doing it anyway, right? Like I might as well make it into a practice. Also, seeing the world through your kids becomes its own spiritual practice. I remember, I always remember Billy, almost 7. She was little. She was probably like 2. We were eating breakfast, and I made her oatmeal. She really liked oatmeal. And she looked at me, and she was like, "Can I put my hand in the oatmeal?" And I was like, "Oh, no, I think she just started." Like, and I was like, "What are you doing? Use a spoon." I was like, "It's so messy." And I'm like, "I just cleaned you up." And, you know, it's like, as a parent, she's like, "Oh, give me a break." And I was like, "What are you doing?" Yeah, like, you should be using a spoon. It's like after like 4 temper tantrums or whatever. Yeah. And I remember she just looked at me, and she was like, "I want to see what it feels like." And I was like, "Oh yeah, she's 2. Like, she's only been in this world for 2. She's never put her hand in oatmeal. And she really needs to see what it feels like." So that was a good practice for me, because I was just like, you know what? You're right. You go ahead. You do need to know what it feels like. Yeah. You know, certain things that, you know, we are careful around safety, and, you know, she also once bit her brother when he was a baby, and because she just wanted to know what he tasted like. So that was like, maybe let's not. Like, make your baby brother cry. But I also was like, I can relate. I also sometimes want to bite him. So like, I get it. I don't do it. But she didn't know. She's 2. She doesn't know. But I just feel like, and even now, you know, now she's almost 7 and her brother's 4, and we have really interesting conversations around, like, she told me recently that she thinks of God as a friendly ghost, which as a Jewish mystic, I'm like, don't love it, but interesting. And we can go with that. We can go somewhere with that, you know? And asking, my kids ask all the time questions that are unanswerable, right? And that is a really good practice. But that's more contemplative, right? Like, that's not meditation. So what makes it meditation is that coming back, right? So, like I said, I brainwash my kids into taking deep breaths. When they are upset and having a temper tantrum, I am not shaking them and saying, "Take a deep breath," right? Like that.
I've tried that a couple times.
I'm sorry, it
doesn't work.
It doesn't work. No. So what you do is you model, and when they were little, I was extremely dramatic, and I'd be like, "I'm feeling frustrated. I'm going to take a deep breath. Oh, I feel better." You know, like it's fake, but it's not fake because I'm actually taking deep breaths. So I'm actually helping myself. So when they were little and having temper tantrums, I wouldn't even invite them to do it with me usually, because I knew that was like a lost cause. Yeah. But I would just be dramatically taking deep breaths and then commenting like, "Oh, that really helped me calm my body," right? And then when they're not having a temper tantrum or upset about something, I just say like, "Hey, let's take a couple deep breaths together." Doesn't that just feel good in your body? And so taking deep breaths just becomes your family practice. So that, again, it's like a fidget toy for the brain, so that when things are hard, there's muscle memory. So when things are hard, my kids just take deep breaths because they just are used to that. Yeah. And I can see it really helps them. And I also have like a very sensitive kid who has just like a little bit of an anxious temperament, and sometimes she'll cry and be like, "It's not working. I'm taking deep breaths and it's not working," which is very relatable. Yeah. Like sometimes it doesn't work. Yeah. You know, and so we need to have like lots of tools. But I also, you know, when you start teaching your kids or modeling and showing them what you're doing, and then they start parroting it back to you, or, you know, repeating what you've said, and then you're like, "Oh, they're right," because then you get upset and they're like, "You should take a deep breath," and you're like, "Yeah, you're right, I should," and that's annoying. But that's really helpful because then they become your teachers, right? Wow. And like I remember once we were flying somewhere, and one of my kids was nervous about the plane taking off, which I understand because we're not used to flying, as people. And I said, what can you say to yourself that you think would help you feel brave, And they said, I'm not a bird, but I am safe. And that became their mantra for the plane taking off, because they needed to validate to themselves that they're not a bird, and this is a new experience, and it's scary, and that they're safe. And so I feel like they were able to come up with that because we've done so much stuff like that just in our family, where we're like, what can we repeat to ourselves, or what can we remind ourselves about to help us feel how we want to feel, whether it's like brave or strong or kind or all those things.
They have a framework that they can just plug different things into,
and to use their breath with it, because I'm like a broken record about it. But I mean, I think it's a good brainwashing.
Yeah.
Because it also, again, it's not just for them. It helps me.
Right.
It helps me be a better parent.
Yeah.
I have learned through parenting that I'm much more sensitive to sound than I had any idea of, because they're so loud. And I didn't know that would be triggering to me. So good to know. And I have way less patience than I thought I had or would have. And I feel like without my meditation practice, I would really be failing like hardcore. And now I'm only like partially failing every day at being like a patient, kind, gentle, But although Billy did tell me recently that she asked me, what did she ask me? Oh, she asked me why I never complain. And I couldn't stop laughing. Because of course I complain all the time. But I guess she just never noticed. I was like, I'm glad she has that perspective.
That's fantastic.
And I'm like content. Because I'm not. She was like, you never complain. How come you never complain? I was like, who do you live with? Her dad also thought that was very funny. I also told her.
Write that down.
This is my kids.
Frame it.
They were complaining about something, and I said, well, nobody's perfect. And they were like, well, you're perfect. And I was like, guys. We told her, like,
they know what side the bread's buttered. Okay, anyway.
You know me, so you know how funny.
Yeah, of course, yeah. All right, I'll record an outro, but thank you, Alison, for being on the Astral Minion, and I think I might change the name to Acid on Shabbos.
Oh, cute.
Yes. This has been like
Thanks, Devin.
the best time of my entire...
All right, thank you for listening. That was episode 3 of Acid on Shabbos, brought to you by Shaddai Elementals, a Jewish art collective making cruelty-free, sustainable tefillin, and mezuzot. Learn more at vegan-tefillin.com. L'chaim.
Let the gray lady come get her fill. Cover-ups are gonna blow, but I wanna be the first to know. There's a cloud of glowing orbs, where the fuck they're gonna go? Oh, I wanna know. Beam me up like Betty Hill. Let the gray lady come get her fill. Cover-ups are gonna blow, but I wanna be the first to know. There's a cloud of glowing orbs, where the fuck they're gonna go? Oh, I wanna know. first I felt afraid, I felt fucking petrified. I'd never seen a ship so big it covered half the sky. But something in the color, in the sound and in the vibe made me come alive, and I followed it inside. I don't remember much, but I do remember pieces. The texture of their skin and the way I prayed to Jesus. The metal of their craft and the light so freaking bright. They dropped me off alone in the middle of the night. Now nobody believes me and it drives me fucking crazy. I get premonition magic, but it's usually sorta hazy. The Navy and the feds are all acting super shady, cause they know this shit is real, but they keep the people waiting. But the people know the bullshit when they see it in the making. We're putting it together cause the truth is for the taking. Waiting for the day when the facts have been revealed. We'll pick up all the pieces and we'll see just how it feels. Beam me up like Betty Hill. The gray lady, come get her fill. The cover-ups are gonna blow, but I wanna be the first to know. There's a cloud of glowing orbs. Where the fuck they're gonna go? Oh, I wanna know. Beam me up like Betty Hill. The gray lady, come get her fill. The cover-ups are gonna blow, but I wanna be the first to know.
There's a cloud of flowing orbs. Where the fuck it's gonna go? Testing. Testing. Okay. It's about to stop. Beam me up like Betty Hill. Give me those thrills that Barney spilled. My palms are sweaty, my skin's got chills. This alien shit is fucking real. Old world dead, new age is here. Space is filled with eyes and ears. Reptilians, greys, and Nordics peer into our souls through our fears. What if Moshiach ben David had arms like a motherfucking centipede? And he Dogon danced from Sirius B. First believe and then you'll see. Our military has non-human biologics, and Venetians gave me visions that defy all logic. The Phoenix Lights, the body in Brazil. This alien shit is fucking real. Greys have been using our DNA, cause Eisenhower told them that it's okay to hybridize alien human babies with star languages born in their brains. Roswell, Rendlesham, the Belgium wave. Bob Lazar in the Nevada cave. Seen on the moon by Buzz and Neil. This alien shit, it's fucking real.
Beam me up like Betty Hill. The gray lady, come get her fill. The cover-ups are gonna blow, but I wanna be the first to know. There's a cloud of glowing orbs. Where the fuck they're gonna go? Oh, I wanna know. Beam me up like Betty Hill. The gray lady, come get her fill. Cover-ups are gonna blow, but I wanna be the first to know. There's a cloud of glowing orbs. Where the fuck they're gonna go? Oh, I wanna know. Beam me up like Betty Hill. The gray lady, come get her fill. Cover-ups are gonna blow, but I wanna be the first to know. There's a cloud of glowing orbs. Where the fuck they're gonna go?